Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about 2 Ship 2 Harkinian, which is an unofficial PC port of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask for the N64. And 2 Ship 2 Harkinian just got a brand new update and introduced some brand new features. Now it is worth pointing out this update came out about a week ago. Someone sent it in for a news tip and unfortunately I missed it, but going back through my history and well, it's right in there, I saw it and now we're talking about it. So I apologize for missing this one when it was hot off the press. Anyways, version 1.1.1 at the time of filming is the latest update. This one has a couple of tweaks and a couple of bug fixes, but it's not the one we're talking about here. We're talking about the big release, version 1.1.0. This one has a whole bunch of enhancements, for example, a modernized menu. You can access it with Escape, the minus button, or your controller's equivalent. F1 still opens the legacy nav bar, but this will be phased out in a future update. And there's now a search. You can find anything in the menus with a new search feature. And color customization. Choose your preferred color affecting most controls across the menu. Now on top of that, there's a couple of new modes here. Mirror mode, play with a mirrored world. And this one's very interesting. Time moves when you move. Time only progresses as you do. So if you like to sit around and wait for that time to change, well, you're just going to have to run in circles for that time to move on. As for the additional options here, there's first-person aiming, now with gyro support, customizable item tracker overlay, persistent bunny mask, wear the bunny mask with other masks. We've got faster song playback, first cycle skip, skip magic arrow equip animation, disable black bar letterboxes, banker min-max shortcuts, quick options for depositing and withdrawing, and a whole bunch more. On top of that, there's tweaks, bug fixes, and, well, even more. Now, 2 Ship 2 Harkinian is obviously the sequel to Ship of Harkinian, which is the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time PC port, unofficial one. Anyways, this one is 100% free, it's open source, and if you are curious about it and wanted to learn more about it, like everything I talk about, link will be in the description below right at the bottom. Next up, we're talking about the Game Awards, and the Game Awards have revealed their nominees for all of their categories. And fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on what side of the fence you're sitting on, we saw this one coming from a mile away. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is nominated for Game of the Year. Now, obviously, this one is highly controversial. I mean, we've talked about this one before when we found out that Game Awards was allowing DLC in their categories. And this person says something I can get behind. So I forget, can you play Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree without owning Elden Ring? People are saying, you know what, Shadow of the Erdtree is basically an entirely new game, and that's why it should be nominated for Game of the Year. But at the same time, I wouldn't really agree with that. I would say that no, it should not be Game of the Year. It should be possibly its own category, Best DLC. I don't understand why an expansion or a DLC on an already existing game should be nominated again, especially considering Elden Ring already won Game of the Year. And the fact that you cannot play Shadow of the Erdtree without owning Elden Ring kind of speaks to that. But let me know your thoughts about that one in the comments below. On a quick side note here, it's worth pointing out that Elden Ring is not just nominated for Game of the Year, it's in multiple categories. It's in Best Art Direction, Best Game Direction, and Best RPG, so it's probably going to win something this year. I don't know here. I think it's taking away spots from games that could be in these categories that are brand new. Anyways, again, let me know your thoughts about this one. Am I way off base here, or does this make sense to you? And on a side note here, under the same vein, and this one may be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics should be nominated either. It's not a new game, it's a collection of games that have been out forever. Again, that might be unpopular. I'm a big fan of Marvel vs. Capcom, but at the same time here, I think this should be restricted to new games only. Again, let me know your thoughts. So overall here, and I think I've said this one before, I'm not the biggest fan of the Game Awards. I'm not saying they're bad, I'm just saying I don't think they're for me. I think they're more of a corporate thing than something meant for gamers, especially given the fact that the fan votes are only weighted at 10%. 90% of the voting that counts are from the voting panel. So all of the voting on their website and everything like that only accounts for 10% of the weighting towards these categories, which to me really isn't enough to make a massive impact on anything. On top of that, I'm wondering where Palworld is. I mean, they're allowing DLC to be in these categories. Why not a game in early access? And continuing to talk about stuff connected with Sony, next up we're talking about FromSoftware. For those who may not be aware, FromSoftware stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, and it's a game studio behind big games like Demon's Souls and Dark Souls and Bloodborne and yes, Elden Ring. And it turns out that Sony may be interested in purchasing Elden Ring, at least that's what's being reported. Sony currently owns about 14% of FromSoftware, if I'm not mistaken. And it looks like they're, well, trying to increase that percent by a whole lot. So this report is right up on Reuters, and I guess the company that Sony is trying to purchase is Kadokawa. I might have mispronounced that one. They own 2% in that, and Kadokawa owns FromSoftware. We'll have to wait and see here, but Kadokawa's shares are up like 23%, at least that's what's being reported, and we may see a deal in a couple of weeks, or an announcement of a deal, or just some sort of update. In my opinion here, this is going to be a very big purchase. I mean, if you take a look here at Kadokawa, again, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and I apologize. They own Spike Chunsoft and also Acquire. Now, Spike Chunsoft you've probably heard of before, or at least played games they've had a hand in. They've been involved with a whole bunch of different games here, including a whole bunch of Dragon Ball games, Pokemon games, and even more. Most recently, they were involved with Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. And as for Acquire here, they've been involved with a whole bunch of games you've probably heard of as well, like Way of the Samurai, Octopath Traveler, and even more. And most recently here, Mario and Luigi Brothership. We're going to have to wait on this one to see what happens, but this could be absolutely huge. I've seen some people very positive and hopeful that maybe this will allow Sony to bring back Bloodborne. And I've seen a lot of people skeptical about it. I'm kind of on the fence here, and I guess I'm just going to wait and see. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. And speaking about things that people have mixed opinions about on, next up we're talking about Rainbow Six Siege. And Rainbow Six Siege has announced that crossplay is coming between PC and consoles on December 3rd. And I'm wondering here, I think the console players might not be happy that PC players can join in, but I'm pretty sure that PC players are excited to dip in against console players. Now, they do have a quick announcement video, and they do say there's going to be something called Mousetrap to try to equalize things between PC and console, and they're also saying here for consoles, you can specify whether or not you want to play against PC or just consoles. I'm very curious to see how this one rolls out moving forward, and on a side note here as well, if you are on PC, you're not going to know who's on console. There is no indicator, other than possible just aiming inefficiencies when compared against PC. I could be wrong. And speaking about consoles, next up we're talking about the PS5 Pro, and it's being reported that some PS5 Pro owners are complaining that some Pro Enhanced games look worse compared to a standard PS5. It seems there are mainly two games being talked about, Silent Hill 2 and Jedi Survivor. And some people are saying it's because the patches for the optimized games haven't been dropped yet. Some people are saying it's a hardware issue with the PS5. Some people are saying it's going to have to be patched at the hardware level and the software level. And most people just don't know the actual reason. Sony and the development teams have been very quiet on it. Now, in my opinion here, if it's either a case of the game having to be updated via a patch or even the console's firmware having to be updated, I think Sony should have waited to release the PS5 Pro. I get it, they're on a schedule, they have to release it at a certain point, but at the same time here, people are paying a premium for this console. And this experience to me is not ideal. It kind of waters down the whole release and makes people question why purchase a PS5 Pro if it's worse than a standard PS5. And speaking about stuff worse than a PS5 Pro, at least in terms of graphical processing power, next up we're talking about the Steam Deck. And this is just a friendly heads up that the limited edition white version of the Steam Deck is now on sale. This is limited in terms of quantities. I've been told as soon as this sells out, that is it. They're not restocking it. And I've made my decision on this one and I'm not picking it up. Yes, it's OLED. Yes, it's 1 terabyte of memory, but at the same time here, I've still got the launch day cheap base version LED Steam Deck, and I am still happy with it. I don't see any sense for me to upgrade this at all. If you want to, that's absolutely fine. But that's one stance that I really get behind that Valve has taken here, where if you've got a Steam Deck, the internal components are almost the exact same. There's very little reason to upgrade if you don't want to. You don't have to. Next up, we're talking about Google, and in my opinion, this is going to be huge for the ARM space. I'm pretty sure it's going to be ARM. Anyways, here it's being reported that Google has a brand new Pixel laptop in development, and it's being reported that it's going to be running Android. I'm very curious to see what you have to say about this one, so let me know your thoughts on it. Unfortunately, I don't know the price or the release date or the specific specs or anything like that just yet. I mean, this thing is reported to be compared against something like the MacBook Pro. And if Valve finishes off their Steam for ARM, if that actually turns out to be a thing, this could be huge for gaming, this could be huge for Android, and this could be huge for a lot of people. Next up, we're talking about a game we've talked about in the past. It's an indie game, and it's called Goodboy Galaxy. And this is not good news for Goodboy. They say here, unfortunately, we have terminated our contract with First Press Games. They no longer have a license to sell our game Goodboy Galaxy, and have been doing so against our wishes and without our permission since the 30th of September. If you purchased Goodboy Galaxy from First Press Games via their website, they have been instructed to refund you. And it is your right to withdraw the sale whether they acknowledge our termination or not. Furthermore, if you backed our project via Kickstarter, First Press Games have also been instructed to refund any shipping fees or pledge upgrades paid directly to them. We intend to fulfill all of the Kickstarter pledges without FPG's involvement, and we'll have news regarding that as soon as we can. Now, from my understanding, the Evercade version of this game remains unaffected as it's a different publisher, and the digital versions of this game also remain unaffected. Goodboy Galaxy is currently available on Steam. It's got a very positive review score with just over 50 reviews. On a side note here, this is not the first time we've heard about an indie game having trouble with a publisher, and I'm hoping it will be the last time. We'll see moving forward on this one, but if you purchased a physical version of Goodboy Galaxy, let everyone know your experiences in the comments below. And speaking about physical versions, next up we're talking about Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics. Now, we talked about this game earlier on in this video, and I didn't think it should have been in the fighting game category for the Game Awards. You can disagree with me on that one, and if you do, let me know in the comments below. But anyways, here the physical version of this game will be getting a 32-page comic, and that includes the Switch version. I think that is absolutely incredible. Next up, we're talking about Shakedown Hawaii, which is an indie game that has been heavily inspired by the Grand Theft Auto series. This game is the successor of sorts to Retro City Rampage. It's made by the same developers here. It was released back in 2020. It's currently 80% off on Steam, and it just got a brand new update. So they're calling this update the Pen vs. Sword update. This update includes a whole bunch of new stuff, including bug fixes, some new arcade challenges, new costumes, new weapons, and even more. As for the new weapons here, there's a brand new sword and shield, a pen, and a light gun. If you haven't played Shakedown Hawaii at 80% off, I think it's worth checking out. If you have played Shakedown Hawaii, this update may encourage you to revisit the game. Next up, we're talking about a brand new front end that appears to be on its way over to Android. It's called GameDeck, and Easy on the Eyes has a brand new YouTube video showcasing this front end in action. From my understanding, this new front end will be free with paid options. There are themes, there's a whole bunch of different things here, and well, it's going to be interesting to see a brand new front end emerge on the scene. I do recommend checking out the video, and I do recommend checking out the channel. From my understanding, Easy on the Eyes is one of the people who are heavily involved in OMG, which is the Ozone Modifications group. She's got a brand new Patreon. Her content is around ROM hacks and game modifications, emulator testing, and even more. Next up, we're talking about Ayaneo, and Ayaneo has got a lot of people talking about the brand new Pocket DMG for a number of big reasons, but one of those is at this bullet point right here. It's going to feature a Snapdragon G3X Gen platform CPU. There are a number of different reviews out for this one already. I mean, ETA Prime's got one, TechDweeb's got one, NerdNest has one, and there's even more out there, and probably will be even more to come. And a lot of people are saying this is the no compromises version of the Game Boy, the best one to get. It's not cheap though, it's coming in at about $350 US. Now, since the Pocket DMG has a fairly powerful CPU in it and it is running Android, it'll probably run pretty much anything you throw at it that works in an Android emulator. I'm very curious to see what happens moving forward on this one, especially with something like Winlator compatibility. Overall, this does seem to be a pretty premium handheld, and I do like the direction Ayaneo is taking here. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below, and if you're interested or if the price point of this makes it unattractive. And speaking about price points, next up we're talking about LaunchBox, which is an emulator front end. LaunchBox does not contain any emulators. It's an emulator front end designed to work with your emulators and your ROMs to try to organize everything in one place and make things look real nice and make things simple and straightforward. Anyways, here LaunchBox has a brand new bundled option for the Android and Windows version. So for Android, the lifetime license will set you back about $40. For Windows, it's $75. And to bundle them together, it'll set you back about $100 overall, which is about a $15 savings. On top of that, you may want to pay attention to these guys because they have sales every year around Black Friday. And speaking about sales, last up we're talking about haunting Hijinx. They say outwit your friends as the ghost or cooperate to catch it in this spooky minigame for 2 to 5 players. This one has just launched on Steam. It's an indie game and it's 100% free and open source. So the GitHub for this game is up and active, and they say it's an open source remake of a classic minigame from Nintendo Land. Non-Steam multiplayer is currently unsupported. If you are curious about this one, like everything I talk about, link will be in the description below. Version 1.0 of this thing just dropped. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. She's upstairs underneath the Christmas tree again, nice and cozy and tucked in. Anyways, we talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely anything in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.